Hi, this is Dr. Georgia. I hope you find today's message a blessing in your life. We want to make sure that we continue to provide these video messages for you when you can't come to church, or for those of you who live in a different state, or we noticed recently we have a lot of people in even different countries who are tuning in. So if that is you and you can donate to us, we invite you to hit that donate button just below the message here. So thanks so much. It is an honor, really, to be able to introduce you to our guest speaker this morning. It's a woman I very much admire. In fact, I call her my spiritual daughter because I think so highly of what she is doing in the world. She is the founder and organizer of Women for Equality. She is a mother of 3 beautiful small children. She is an author of a fabulous book and a second book coming out that she's going to talk to us about. She's the First Lady of the Unity of Sacramento, and you know we listen here at this church to the wisdom of any First Lady, don't we? That ought to get me something later. I don't know. Taping that. I know you were. So here's the thing. With all of those are all external things, and I appreciate those, I admire them, and I respect them. But here's what I respect most, and nobody comes on this stage without this ability, and that is to understand spiritual principle and walk that talk in their life. Not only for themselves and their own family, but for all of us. And that's what she does. She has a way of being real and promoting a hope for us through these powerful spiritual teachings that we have here at the Center for Spiritual Awareness. So will you join me in welcoming Anita Ross?
Thank you, Rev. Georgia, for having me, and First Lady, thank you so much for being here with me and having me here. I am excited. Are you all excited? Yeah. All right. I have a fun topic for the beginning of a new year. I am going to be talking about reinventing yourself, how to hit the reset button on life. 2018, this is a great topic to kick us off, right? All right, so since it's a holiday weekend and we're honoring Martin Luther King Jr., I thought it was appropriate to start off with a little story that ties it in. When I was first dating Rev Kev of Unity of Sacramento, as Rev George said, we did our first away date, and it was to Atlanta, Georgia. And if you know anything about him, he's going to talk about Morehouse College, his alma mater, at all costs. So he decided to take me there and show me around. And as we're looking around the campus, we end up at this Martin Luther King exhibit. There's a huge monument. There's like photos from his famous talks that he did and his sermons. And I'm getting super inspired, and I'm getting emotional as I get inspired. And then finally we're leaving, and I just start bawling, like the ugly, sloppy cry. And he's like, "Oh, what's going on?" And I just mustered out, "I'm not doing anything with my life." And he's like, "Pardon me for saying this, but you are comparing yourself to the Martin Luther King." And I was like, okay. That put it in perspective for me. But little did I know that a huge reinvention was on its way. And I'll get into that a little bit more. But I always like to open my talks with defining a simple definition for the word that we're going to be really being discovery about, and that is reinvent. And so Macmillan Dictionary says that reinvent is to change something that already exists and give it a different form or purpose. So in a nutshell, it means to change. And I know that some people, nobody in here of course, some people have a little resistance to the word change, especially when we are in the beginning of a new year and we're trying to gain mastery over our resolutions. So I like to put it in a slightly different way and put it in the context of our lives. And so to reinvent yourself is to become the person it takes to go in a new direction in life, whether that be in any area of your life, your health, your career, your intimate relationships, your friendships, family, community, and any other area of your life. And another way of saying that is accessing the ways of being that are inherent to us that it takes to go in that new direction. All right? And the premise is that we have everything within us that we need to achieve it. Right? Because as Rev Georgia said earlier, we are perfect, whole, and complete just as we are, and absolutely worthy of achieving new dreams, new accomplishments, new choices, and new attitudes. See, we have the benefit of that God within us, that perfection that is all-encompassing. And it's simply a matter of us choosing to utilize that perfection when the opportunity arises. And so we have reinventing power because of that spirit within us. We are expressions of spirit, we are creations of spirit, and that divinity is unchanging. But how we move as spirit on this earth and in our lives is ever evolving, wouldn't you say? So as we evolve, we release the person that we once were so that we can show up in this new way as spirit. Yes? Yes. And it's important to recognize that reinventions are God-driven and not circumstance-driven. Let me say that again. Reinventions are God-driven, not circumstance-driven. What does that mean? That means that a reinvention is going to feel right, it's going to feel good, it's going to feel authentic, fun, exciting, sometimes a little bit scary, but in a good way. And if it's circumstance-driven, you're looking at a change, but it's circumstance-driven, then it's going to feel bad, it's going to feel like desperation, duty, obligation. I don't know, you go pick your poison. Now, God will call us up to our reinvention by simply asking, or as I like to say, by any means necessary. I call it the tap, knock, crash. Tap. What is the tap? The tap is a gentle message that it is time for change. And that message might come to you in meditation, it might come to you in reflection, inner contemplation, but it is a soft, gentle, kind message that it is time for you to make a change. It is time for a reinvention. And if you listen and you adhere to that call, then it stops there. For example, when I switched from, I used to be an engineer in corporate America, when I switched from that career of 10 years in corporate America into living the life, living my purpose of empowering women to love themselves, it was no drama. It was not dramatic. I kept getting signs that it was time to move on. I was pulled in the direction of making a difference, and I did it. Came up with my little 90-day plan. I resigned in peace, getting along with everybody that was there, and I moved on. Now, little did I know that 2 months later, I would find out that I was pregnant with my first child. Gone was the 90-day plan. But I did have the opportunity to not only reinvent myself in my career, but reinvent myself into a mother. It was pretty awesome. But had I not, so if we don't listen at the tap stage, we get to the knock. The knock is a stronger, louder, even obnoxious at times, message that it is time for change. It might feel jolting, it might feel surprising, and sometimes very annoying. Now here's the thing. The knock must penetrate your stuckness or your stubbornness, nobody in here of course, and or your knowing it all. Let me say that again. The knock must penetrate stuckness, stubbornness, and or knowing it all. And while it doesn't happen for me that often, that one time I was stubborn, I was in an emotionally and abusive relationship. And no matter what level of pain I was in, and no matter how many people said, you know, it's really time to get out of this relationship, nobody could tell me, not even my inner voice could tell me yet, that it was time to leave the relationship. I thought that I could love this person into loving me back. I was wrong. Now, 2 years later, after a whole lot of knocking, I got out of that relationship. However, I hadn't gotten the greater message that it was time for like a real inner change. And so 15 years later of unhealthy, abusive, broken, and sometimes just simply inauthentic relationships, I got to the crash. The crash is a rock bottom moment or a really dark moment in your life that gives you no other option but to change. It is a rock bottom moment or a dark moment that gives you no other option but to change. So I remember my rock bottom moment. I remember my crash. I call it the fateful night. It was when I had this feeling that I didn't care whether I lived or died. I was working at home on a project for some VPs at the company that I was working for. I had a presentation the next day, working on it diligently, and all of a sudden, I hear a thrashing and a violent knocking at my door. And I was more concerned about what my neighbors would think about that noise and what's going on with her than my safety, so I let him in. He pushed me against the wall. He pulls out a gun, points it in my face, and says, "Nobody will ever love you the way that I do." And where I was with my self-love or lack thereof, at that point, I really was hoping that he was telling me the truth. I really was hoping that he could love me that much. Yeah, ironic, with a gun in my face. And so the cops were called, the neighbors did hear, and I didn't press charges at that time, and I finally got him to calm down. I got him out of the house. The next day, I rocked my presentation. I did amazing. VPs were happy, and I was ready to celebrate. And when my boyfriend called and said, "Hey, you want to celebrate tonight?" I said yes. And it wasn't until 2 weeks later that I was staring at the end of that same barrel of that same gun that I had it. That for me was my rock bottom moment. And it wasn't because I was staring at the gun again. It was actually because of the thought that I didn't care whether I lived or died. That scared me. And that night I chose to live. And I think it's important for me to mention here that that reinventions are not detours. Detours will take you away from your good. I call them going on a tangent, being on a detour. They take you away from your good. That's where I was in that relationship. But a reinvention is simply changing the form of your good, changing how it looks in your life. However, detours often lead to a reinvention. So in this case, I had it, and I had nowhere but to turn my life around. And so I took a year off from intimate relationships, and I immersed myself in myself. It was time for me to learn who I am, get to know who I am, like no kidding. It was time for me to choose to love myself no matter what has happened in my past, no matter what people think of me, and no matter what my circumstances are. And then the last piece, which is so important, I learned and built the courage and confidence to express my authentic self in this world. All three of them go hand in hand. I call it the process of self-love. And once I was healed from my past, and I had some time built using my self-love muscle, that's when I decided that I was ready to share my message of self-love with the world. I went on to write a book called Meantime Love, A Woman's Journey from Self-Loathe to Self-Love. And then I decided to just go tour the nation with book signings, speaking wherever, anybody who would listen, or workshops and retreats. It's been a blast. And to be honest, I am on a mission. I am on a mission to empower millions of women to love themselves fully. Yeah. I truly believe that when we hit critical mass of women who love themselves fully, we will in fact rid this world of the ills that plague it. We are just that powerful. This is the vision that I am driven by. This is the hope that I'm inspired by. And this is the result that I want to leave for my children. So how amazing is it that I came from that place of a gun to my face to living my purpose and spreading my message? How amazing is that? That's Spirit. Spirit is just that amazing. And Spirit is ever present, unwavering, and acts as an anchor that allows us to flow with life and to prevail. It's amazing where we can come from. I watched this show, Intervention. Anybody ever seen the show Intervention? It follows the lives of people who are working through and challenged with addiction. And the places that they can take their bodies. I get amazed by what they can do to their bodies, and their bodies can bounce back, and their minds can bounce back, and the level of forgiveness that they can give to themselves to come back and prevail through that addiction. It's pretty powerful. That's Spirit. Spirit is amazing. So when the opportunities for reinvention come, it's about how we choose to take it on. And I have 5 quick tips that will support you in this. Number 1, be positive. Have a positive attitude about the opportunity that's coming to you. Ask, why is this happening for me versus why is this happening to me? It's a completely different paradigm. Why is this happening for me? Like, this is a gift. I just get to figure out what that is. That's motivating. And why is this happening to me? Not so much, right? Number 2, be flexible. Be willing to move with the ebbs and flows of change. They're inevitable, especially if something big is calling you. It's not already laid out. The plan's not already laid out. We might not know how. As long as you take those steps, you don't get stuck. I know for me, when I try to figure out all the details in advance, I get stuck. So just be willing to be flexible. Number 3 is be courageous. Break through your fears. Be willing to get uncomfortable. I always say that when you step outside of your comfort zone, that's where the magic happens. Be courageous. Number 4 is be compliant. Listen to God, the God within and the God that surrounds us, right? And the God that works through us. Martin Luther King says, faith is taking the first step, even when you can't see the whole staircase. Isn't that powerful? And number 5, be bold. Step into your God-given life, own your purpose in all its glory, and let your destiny be guided by this light. Be bold, take a risk. It's going to require you to take a risk. Anytime we step out of what we already know, we step into the risk. But it's worth it, right? Yeah. So a couple years ago, I had my first bout with empty nest syndrome. Yes, it starts really young. My littlest was going to preschool. And it was mutual that we didn't want to do this. He had like sit-ins and stand-ins and protests in the lobby. He just did not want to go into the preschool. It was great. He was convincing me on why we should skip out and go do something together. And it was mutual. It was really rough. I was like, oh my goodness, this is a big, major point in my life. And just as my time was about to free up, my husband, he's a genius, decides that he's going to ask me, hey, can you work for 30 days at Unity of Sacramento? I have some special projects, just 30 days. I'm like, I don't know about this because I really want to finish my second book. I want to go really take this message of self-love to the next level. And I always said that once my kids, are in school and I have a little bit more freedom, I would do that. But then I decided, well, 30 days. 30 days is the perfect distraction to get my feelings, processed and out of the way around dropping my baby off at school and what that means for me as a mother. So I did it. I said yes. And then, of course, 2 years later, they finally found the perfect candidate to take over my responsibilities. And my career, the demands on my career were outgrowing the amount of time I was dedicating to it. So it was perfect timing. As you know, I have started Women for Equality, and at that time we were just doing great, great things. And I want to give yourselves a large round of applause because CSA was integral in its inception. So give yourselves a round of applause. Women for Equality informs, inspires, and empowers people to stand up for love and equality. Our goal is a world that works for everyone. Who? For everyone. Our philosophy is that it isn't over until love wins. Amen. Yes. So not only that, I was finally like, my second book was really just wanting to come out, and I had admittedly been more pulled in by the causes that Women for Equality was standing for at that time. So it's just really, really focused not on the book and not on even getting the message of self-love out there. And so it was time. It was really time to flip the script. And as soon as I left Unity of Sacramento, my first retreat, my first Meantime Love retreat, had the lowest registrations that I've ever had. And then, same week, I remember having a Women for Equality meeting, and the attendance was the lowest that it ever had. So I was like, man, have I made the right decision? And the appearance in that moment was that I didn't. But then, once I got regrounded and clear about who I am and why I'm here on this earth, I realized that no, this is time for a huge reinvention. And it got exciting for me. I started noticing how my work with empowering women to love themselves fully was fusing beautifully with giving women a platform to share their voices through Women for Equality. And Women for Equality started reflecting on all that we had accomplished and all that we had done in 1 year and what's possible for our second year. I finally finished my second book. I cannot believe it's here. Meantime Love. So I've got self-love, now what? Because even when you have self-love, I got a secret. Everybody ready? Right? Life still happens. So I write all about that and how we get triggered and how to just maintain and sustain self-love through it all. But most importantly, I've become clear, like never before, how women matter and how our voices get to be heard, and that it is our time to wield our superpowers. I truly believe it's up to the women. I believe it is our time. I believe that we can create a world that works for all. Isaiah 60 says, "Rise up and shine, for your light has come. The shining greatness of the Lord has risen upon you." You've got that light. I've got that light, no matter what the appearances may make it look like. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep on moving." So go ahead, reinvent yourself, remap your destiny, embrace it. When you stand in your truth and you've got God on your team, you cannot go wrong. Thank you.